Surrounded by the highest mountains in the world and an adventurer's dream, the fascinating Kingdoms of the Himalayas. Secluded and relatively untouched, a hidden treasure of mankind. Sikkim, for centuries a segregated and independent Buddhist kingdom situated on the edge of the Himalayas. Historical, cultural and spiritual, Sikkim is strongly associated with Tibet and possesses more than 200 monasteries. The most holy monastery of the Nyingmapa schools is in Tashiding. The monastery was built following the sighting of a rainbow that connected this location with the majestic Kanchenjunga mountain. This large complex consists of a modest main temple, several buildings, chapels and chorten with relics of both chogyals and lamas. On the 15th day of the first month of the Tibetan calendar, followers from all over Sikkim come to Tashiding to celebrate Nyingmapa Bumchu festival. The sleepy village of Yoksum is located on a large plateau. In 1642, 3 lamas met here. They came from various parts of the Himalayas in order to appoint a religious leader. In Norbalang Chorten, numerous offerings were made. The building is thought to have been constructed of stone and earth gathered from various regions. The stone throne of the first chogyal and a stone footprint are also worshipped here. On the northern edge of the village is the sacred Kathok Lake, whose water is often used for religious ceremonies. Along the lake shore are many Buddhist prayer flags that have been placed there by the faithful, who hope their wishes will be answered by the gods. The sacred water is green and calm and reflects the flags and surrounding mountains. A place of tranquility, ideal for meditation. A romantic forest trail leads to the Dungtse Monastery that was built high above Yoksum in a spectacular location in 1701. Two prayer houses and 3 stupas are situated in the fenced garden terrain. It's one of the oldest monastery complexes that is no longer inhabited by monks. A place of pilgrimage, 1,700 meters above sea level. Religious texts are stored in these houses of worship, and saints and demons survey the scene. At 2,000 meters, the Kechia Palri Monastery, along the route to the Magic Lake. Initially, only a forest of prayer flags can be seen. And and next a long footbridge and small lake, another sacred place. According to legend, the leaves that fall upon the surface of the lake are collected by a bird, so the purity of the water is assured. From Pelling, a strenuous but scenic path leads up the final hill to the Taktshang Monastery. Mostly shrouded by dense fog, this, the oldest of Sikkim's monasteries, is full of mystique. As is the interior of the prayer house. The monastery was destroyed by fire and rebuilt in 1948 and contains a number of the monastery's original clay statues. The original monastery was built by Lhatsun Chenpo, and its name means the island of esoteric doctrine, a worthy description. Just 2 kilometres from Pelling, another impressive monastery is perched at the end of a ridge high above the Rangit River. Pemayangtse Gompa. This was also founded in the 17th century by Lhatsun Chenpo and belongs to the Nyingmapa Order. Each new year, at the Losar celebration, a Guru Rinpoche is performed here. After the first Chogyal resided in Yuksam, his son, King Tensung Namgyal, moved the capital to Rabdense. The rule of a secular and religious leader of Sikkim was soon recognized by Tibet, and its territory extended far beyond the borders of today. Hostilities by the Nepalese army destroyed the capital, and only the palace ruins have survived. Near the small town of Kwezing is the Bern Monastery of the same name. It was built in the last decade of the 19th century while under the rule of Tutob Namgyal. The history of the Bern faith, which originated in Tibet, dates back to the 9th century. Different from Buddhism, the Holy King was at its center. The relationship between shamanism and nature has been preserved right up to the present day. Fortune-telling is also part of the Bern religion. Next, a funeral in Mangru Monastery. A fascinating ceremony, with matching music and prayers, and the participation of the entire community. A few monks of the tiny monastery pray for the deceased. And the villagers receive food and drink next to the spot where the body has been cremated. The Ralong Monastery and its young student monks gives a warm welcome to visitors. The oldest monastery in Kagyupa is a splendid sight. After the fourth Chogyal returned from a pilgrimage, he planted cereal seeds from the Serfu monastery in Tibet and had this monastery built. Here, 100 monks reside in a new building, the Pelling Monastic Institute. In the 11th century, the Kagyupa school of Buddhism was disseminated by the Mapa of Tibet. The basis of the teachings were tantric and magical exercises. So the reality of wisdom, enlightenment, veneration, and emptiness are deemed to be identical. In 1959, following an invasion by the Chinese, Rangyung Rigpi Dorje fled from Tibet. But within a few years, the Karmapa had begun to build a new monastery on land gifted by the king of Sikkim, Chogyal Tashi Namgyal. Rumtek Gompa became the headquarters of the Karma Kagyu school. The cult of black hats had great influence and spread Tibetan Buddhism to the west, and today the monastery continues to be protected from its various enemies. Near Gangtok is the Lingdom Monastery, which was founded by Guru Rinpoche, who is believed to be the 12th incarnation of Zumang Gawang. It is a monastery of typical Tibetan design with brightly painted columns and external walls, and gallery corridors in front of the monks' living quarters. Life in the monasteries was often hard and full of privation, and due to a shortage of young people, many families had to send at least one son to the monastery. Only a few were suited to demanding philosophical study, and so the monks were divided into various lower divisions of monastic service. Major changes in monastery life began during the revival of the monasteries in the late 1970s. But their deep faith has been preserved. Today, Gangtok is a multicultural capital, extends along a mountainside at an altitude of 1,870 meters above sea level, and was once located on a busy trading route to Tibet. Here, Buddhism has survived despite its transformation to a modern city, and the Enche Monastery is popular with the local people. The monastery was built on a site blessed by Druptob Kapo. Today, 90 monks live in the monastery. And believers worship the figure of St. Lama in the tiny chapel which it's believed he had built on his arrival here. Sikkim, a jewel on the edge of the Himalayas. Kathmandu, a metropolis in the heart of the Kingdom of Nepal, a land of snow-white mountains and home of the gods. A melting pot of races and religions located between China and India. Magical, mysterious, and enchanting. It was only a few decades ago that ancient Nepal opened up its borders. Until then, due to the command of the ruling Gurkha dynasty, the home of the divine was totally isolated. The foundation of Kathmandu, formerly known as Kantipur, took place during the first third of the 8th century. This majestic city was at its zenith between the 16th and 18th centuries. The discovery of the wheel ended the Middle Ages in this country of myth and legend that for hundreds of years had previously been artificially maintained by its ruling monarchs. Bhaktapur, also known as the City of the Pious, is one of the ancient royal cities in the 30-kilometre-long Kathmandu Valley. A medieval city that developed from a fortress complex. Later, Bhaktapur was transformed into a city palace that eventually expanded into an entire district. Sundoka, a gilded bronze ornamental gate, is one of the most beautiful and valuable in the world. It leads to the inner courtyards of the palace. Naga Pohari is a large royal bath in the northeast of the palace. It was built at the beginning of the 17th century and is surrounded by a snake-shaped balustrade. There's the stunning golden statue of the famous Bhupatindra Mala, and the Vatsala Devai temple is flanked by elephants and lions. As with Kali, the goddess Vatsala embodies the dark and threatening demeanor of the aloof Durga, who was eventually subdued by human sacrifice. The Farsi Dega Dega temple can only be reached by steps which are flanked by elephants and mythical figures. Also known as Narayana in Nepal, at first Vishnu was worshipped. But in his 8th incarnation as Vishnu, he was transformed into Krishna. In the 15th century, Yaksha Mala divided his realm among his sons. So originated the 3 kingdoms of Kathmandu, Bhaktapur, and Patan. Until the middle of the 18th century, each competed for the most beautiful palaces and temples. Patan, the former Lalitpur, otherwise known as the Beautiful City, became merged with its former neighbouring metropolis and old rival Kathmandu. Durbar Square is at the centre of urban life in Patan. Its history is believed to date back more than 2,000 years. During the reign of King Siddhi Narasimha Malla, Patan became the seat of an independent kingdom, and so attained the status of a royal city that was both architecturally and culturally influenced by the rise of Hinduism. Prior to this, Lalitpur was known as the center of Buddhism, with more than 150 monasteries, including the most famous main monastery, the Golden Temple, the Khwa Bahal. In the middle of the 14th century, the local nobility became independent and controlled vast parts of the mountain valleys. But their newly won independence soon came to an end. At the end of the 14th century, under King Jayasthithimala, came political change that was designed to prevent increasing fragmentation and also to restore unity. By the introduction of a caste system, the country's entire social structure was completely transformed. Nepal's long history that reaches back to mythological times has generated many magnificent cultural epochs and dynasties, the remains of which can still be seen and marveled at today. Most of the independent kingdom of Bhutan is located 2,000 meters above sea level and is situated between India in the south and Tibet in the north. The land of the thundering dragon, high up between the peaks of the Himalayas. Thimphu is the capital of this fascinating country, 2,300 meters above sea level. Until the 1960s, Bhutan was protected from intruders due to its geographical location and was totally cut off from the outside world. On the northern edge of the city, on the banks of the Mangru River, is the Pangri Zampa temple, two impressive white buildings in the center of a monastery. After his arrival in Bhutan in 1616, Shabdrung Ngawang Namgyal lived here, as the temple had appeared to him in a vision. Today, a monastic school of astrology is located behind an unusually long prayer wall of carved stones surrounded by a forest of cypress trees. The main building is the Paro Dzong fortress, which the Shabdrung had built. South of Thimphu, Semtoka Dzong is located in a strategic position, a typical Bhutanese fortress. The sturdy, sloping walls of the Palace of Profound Tantric Teachings was designed to ward off attack by 5 groups of lamas in 1634. In its infancy, Bhutan was a Hindu feudal principality up until the 8th century, when Indian missionaries introduced Buddhism. However, in the following century, it was violently opposed by Tibetan monks. They replaced it with Lamaism, into which increasing numbers of subgroups were formed. On the Duchula Pass is the Copper Palace of Guru Rinpoche, which is said to be modelled after Zandopalri. In memory of the holy deeds and gestures of the 4th king. Punakha is a large village whose main building is a monastery castle that is strategically located at the meeting of 2 rivers. Punakha Dzong was Bhutan's winter capital for over 300 years. Guru Rinpoche blessed this place and predicted the construction of a fortress here. In 1637, Shabdrung came here and set up camp. That same night, he had a prophetic dream. So he decided to build a dzong here and to store within it a most sacred relic which he had brought from his monastery in Tibet. It was the Avalokiteshvara statue that had miraculously appeared from nowhere. The Tibetans wanted it back and duly attacked, but the Bhutanese defended it successfully, an event that is celebrated each year. People from across the country come to Punakha to celebrate the sacred victory festival in the monastery. At this time, the dzong is open to all. During the 3-day celebrations, thousands populate the large courtyard in order to experience religious processions and ritual dances. The content and form of these dances are precisely defined. Masked monks play gods and guardian deities that are depicted in the temple as paintings and sculptures. The dancers attain spiritual salvation and the protection of the spirits. Entertaining clowns amuse the audience, along with women's singing groups. All beneath the benevolent eyes of Khenpo. Scenes of the daily life of the Bhutanese are portrayed in dance, in fields, and during a hunt. The gods are always close by. Several mystery dancers recall the deeds of the mighty Shabdrung, who led the Drupka school in the 17th century. A monk who characterizes Shabdong Rinpoche appears before the waiting crowd, and the demons are yet again expelled. The result is the victory of the forces of good over evil. Religion is the basis of daily life here, and sacred rites are treated with the utmost respect. The people enjoy the monastery festivals and spend the whole day here. Monks in colourful costumes and masks, plus the participation of the people in both song and dance, create a mystical mood and make the monastery festival something really special. Bhutan is a peaceful country whose symbol is a dragon. In the 12th century, during the construction of a Tibetan monastery, a roll of thunder was heard, a sound that was interpreted as the voice of a dragon. Bhutan is a country of fertile paddy fields and orchards, tiny colourful villages, deep, wide valleys and snow-capped mountains. Agriculture is the main source of income of its people. Mother Nature is worshipped, and culture and age-old traditions are well observed. Situated on a hill in the Punakha Valley and surrounded by paddy fields is the idyllic Dungtse Lhakhang. The temple is a place of pilgrimage for infertile women. A shady, sacred tree and a forest of prayer flags surround the small Dungtse Monastery that was built on a plateau. It was founded by Ngawang Chogyal, the 14th heir of Ralun, in 1499. It's on the site of a stupa previously built at the command of Lama Drukpa Kunli. above the Taktshang River and with a bridge checkpoint, the Wangdu Paro Dzong dominates a majestic mountain ridge. To the founder of the empire, a deity who appeared in a dream predicted peace and that a fortified monastery would be built in the shape of a sleeping bull. The fortified monastery is quite charming, rustic, and was built in various stages. The rearmost building just above the bridge is the oldest part of the fortress. Its secrets hidden to visitors. The town settlement of Paro was founded in 1985 and has since developed rapidly along the river. The bridge in its center is decorated with colorful icons, prayer flags, and paintings of numerous saints. Small towers guard steps to the bridge on both banks, and in the background the fortress is visible. A wooden bridge that once spanned the torrential river was retracted when danger threatened. The route to Paro Dzong travels along the valley to Dungtse Lhakhang, a small temple that is shaped like a Tibetan chorten. According to legend, a monster once lived here, a turtle with 9 heads, which brought misfortune to all the people in the area. However, they managed to close up the cave in which the monster lived and built the temple over it. Here, the land is fertile, there are no monsters, and modern technology is slowly conquering the secluded valley. The fortified Paro Monastery is one of the most beautiful buildings in Bhutan. The mighty fortress once controlled the route by which the Tibetan armies repeatedly invaded. The Uchi, a central tower with a main temple, stands in the middle of a courtyard and is surrounded by buildings, temples, monasteries, and government offices. The 5-story buildings are inhabited by the governor of the valley and monks. The lower section of the second courtyard is a cloistered area and is decorated accordingly. For more than 1,000 years, this tiny kingdom has survived in self-imposed isolation, cut off from the outside world by its own deliberate policy. Above Paro, on a slope on the right-hand bank of the river, lies the temple of the Ki River. According to legend, a giant female demon settled on the entire Himalayan region in order to prevent the spread of Buddhism. "108 temples were placed on each major part of her body. So Kichu Lhakhang was built on her left foot. At the end of the valley, about 15 kilometres from Paro and located on a hill, is the once proud Paro Dzong fortress. At its foot, the beautiful village of Tsento nestles among protective rocks and is surrounded by fertile fields which are brown or green according to the season of the year. Today, only ruins recall the heroic role of the fortified monastery during the Tibetan-Bhutanese War. as a defense against the incursion of the Tibetans. Just off the only road in the Paro Valley, pack horses are waiting. From here begins the arduous ascent to one of the most remote monasteries in the world. Various horses return to the valley, finally free of their burdens. From curve to curve, the Taktshang Monastery comes into view, secured within the steep rock. This, the world-famous Tiger's Nest. Flags flutter in the cool breeze and prayer wheels rotate at 2,950 meters above sea level. We arrive at this holy place that is situated between heaven and earth, and where Guru Rinpoche landed triumphantly on the back of a flying tigress. Bhutan has retained its ancient traditions, religious secrets, and cultural identity. Amid an untouched wilderness, nomads settled here for more than 3,000 years on this, the roof of the world, the highlands of Tibet, one of the most fascinating regions on earth. The Buddhist religion has always determined the life of the Tibetan people, and Tibet possesses an impressive number of magnificent monastery complexes, as well as many other religious buildings. In Lhasa, capital of Tibet, the temples are a hive of activity. But what are the origins of the deep-rooted faith and piety of the Tibetan people? The first ratified king of Tibet, Rangit Chenpo, who was considered to be of divine origin, highlights the special status of religion in this country. The origin of the most well-known building in Lhasa, the Potala Palace, dates back to the time of Dungtse Lhakhang in 637 AD. Both worldly and spiritual power have been closely associated in Tibet since the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC. It was in the 8th century AD that Buddhism established itself in this Himalayan kingdom and has continued to thrive right up to the present day. The rotation of the prayer mill is an important part of Tibetan Buddhism. It is a symbol of physical movement and spirituality. Ten kilometers west of Lhasa is Taktshang Gompa, one of the most important monastery complexes in Tibet. The pilgrim's route first leads past a holy spring. Drepung, as with Sera, is one of the Gelug Academy's 3 main academies of Tibetan Buddhism. The followers of this order are known as Yellow Caps. The buildings and rocks along the pilgrimage route are quite splendid. Drepung Gompa is a historic place. Long before completion of Lhasa's Potala Palace, this monastery was the residence of the predecessor of the Dalai Lama. In just a short time, the monastery that was founded by Yamchen Shurji at the beginning of the 15th century grew into a small town of monks. Because the abbots of Drepung were involved in each of the country's most important political decisions, the monastery was frequently at the center of various hostilities. Drepung was once one of the richest monasteries in Tibet, as indicated by its abundant furnishings, despite the dramatic events of the recent past. A fascinating place full of magic and spirituality. Nestling in an isolated valley almost 4,300 meters above sea level is the oldest monastery of the Yellow Cap Academy, Ganden Gompa. The secluded location of Ganden Gompa failed to protect it from the destruction wrought by its Chinese occupiers. However, the town managed to survive. The large assembly hall is full of history. It's believed that the famous founder of the Gelug Academy, Tsongkhapa, also taught here. The historic origins of Buddhism lie within the Indian subcontinent on the North Indian pilgrimage site of Lumbini, place of birth of Siddhartha Gautama. He was a prince of the noble Shakya family in the 6th century BC. According to history, he was enlightened at the age of 35 and became known as Buddha. A little later in today's Sanath, he gave his first sermon. This marked the birth of Buddhism. Our final destination is a unique sanctuary within the Sangpo Valley, Samye Gompa. The emergence of Samye Gompa in 775 AD marked the beginning of the Buddhist monastery culture in Tibet. At the time of the foundation of the monastery, the political situation in the country was far from peaceful. The construction of Samye Gompa, whose architecture is based upon Buddhist principles, took place after careful review of the geomantic location of this site, which means that clairvoyants were asked to select the location of the monastery. The introduction of Buddhist monastery culture and the rejection of the Burn religion brought Tibetan society a new lease of life. In order to establish Buddhism with the common people, numerous local rituals and beliefs were added to Tibetan Lamaism. Magic rituals, exorcism, and traditional ritual healings were essential elements of Tibetan Buddhism from the start. And as a symbol, Samye Gompa is one of the country's most important sanctuaries. The monastery fortress of Nyingmapa Order is a reminder of the early history of Tibet. Nyingmapa Order was built in the 2nd century BC as the first palace of the first Tibetan king, Rangit River. Later in the 7th century, the fortress was transformed into a summer residence. After a subsequent king, Songtsen Gampo, transferred his seat of government to Lhasa, the fortress was being transformed prior to a Gelugpa monastery being built there. Over the centuries, the three-level monastery fortress was expanded with new chapels and further rooms for the monks. So the architecture is not consistent. However, the building is extremely atmospheric. Under Lhatsun Chenpo, the mystique of this area reached its conclusion in Tibet. The king freed various Tibetan tribes and stabilized his realm. The land of gods also increased its military strength, and many successful conquests extended the borders. The Tibetan king eventually ruled over an area that spread from Turkestan to Kokonor Lake in the east and from Nepal in the south to as far as Mongolia. He sent a delegation to India. When they returned, they brought with them the teachings of Buddha. This god was far more powerful than the ancient traditional Tibetan deities and impressed Lhatsun Chenpo so much that he pressed for the introduction of Buddhism with much enthusiasm. While under the reign of subsequent monarchs of the early Buddhist realm, Tan Druk had become one of 3 royal monasteries of Tibet. However, the monastery complex suffered much damage due to Mongol invaders and more recently during China's Cultural Revolution. However, protected by the mighty mountains, monastic life is returning here. This proud fortress, the Dzong, was built in 1365. And it was the seat of the region's monarchs. It towers above the 3rd largest city in Tibet, Gyangxi. The city's history is closely associated with the fortress that for many years served as the administrative center and seat of government for the local governor. Gyangxi lay at the junction of several important trading routes to Lhasa, but its inhabitants only enjoyed modest prosperity. One of the largest and most important monuments of Tibet's sacred architecture is the amazing Kombom Chorten, a 3-dimensional mandala that can be entered. After a ritual journey, one symbolically passes through the entire Buddhist path of deliverance to as far as nirvana. The journey begins at the bottom with simple deities, then follows the entire pantheon of Tibet that has been immortalized in numerous sculptures and wall paintings. And to this day, watched over by the all-seeing eyes of Buddha. Visible from a distance, a splendid monastery looks over the city of Shigatse on the Mountain of Blessing. Each day, hundreds of pilgrims visit this holy place. Tashi Lampo, along with Sera, Drepung and Ganden, was one of the most important monastery complexes of the Yellow Caps of central Tibet. The influence of the rival Red Caps within the surroundings of Shigatse came to an end with the reign of the 5th Dalai Lama in the 17th century. However, this traditional Buddhist monastery is most closely linked to Tibet's 2nd most important religious leaders, the Panchen Lamas. With the appointment of the monastery as the official residence of the Panchen Lama, the monastery rapidly gained importance within the Buddhist world. Here, religious belief lives on, a fact that has prevented many unique and sacred treasures from being destroyed. The kingdoms on the roof of the world continue to captivate and inspire, along with their unique monasteries and rich monastic culture.